America smart again. It's the Krieger Files with Dave Krieger. Are you tired of your boss stealing from your paycheck to send to a government that's writing checks its body can't cash? It's the government's worst nightmare. Dave Krieger.
Oh, yeah, we are on our Friday edition. Fred Dashevsky will be joining us later in the hour to talk more about the economy, which I guess has just really got a whole lot of people out there smoking mad because of things that are going on in D.C. Apparently, that's supposed to be a reflection of what's going on in the economy, but I don't know. You kind of have to weigh this thing out a little bit at a time and how it affects your immediate situation. WikiLeaks is back in the news again, as a matter of fact. The government has been funding over 6,000 journalists worldwide across nearly 1,000 platforms. Politico, the AP, the BBC, and others. The U.S. government's been effectively propping up regime-friendly media, according to Zero Hedge. 6,200 journalists across 707 media outlets and 279 media non-governmental organizations, which includes 90% of the reportage out of Ukraine. Well, that should freak you out. 9 out of 10 media outlets in Ukraine are all being funded by USAID. This is so they can sit there and fill our heads full of nonsense. We don't know if it's the truth or not. Like I've said on previous shows, we don't know because we're not there. What I do know, according to Doge, this is the newly minted Department of Government Efficiency. Elon Musk has reported to El Presidente Trumpo what he describes as a staggering $100 billion of taxpayer money wasted by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS. $100 billion. Yep, they got in there. Now, see, he can only look at, it's like a read-only file. He can't actually get in and manipulate the data and look and see, specifically where everything is and how it's being spent. But apparently, CMS is there for contracting, for payment, and making the Medicare, Medicaid system work. And so the read-only access doesn't give him as much. But potential fraud, that's what Doge is all about, is looking all this stuff up, right? Meanwhile, Amazon and Walmart going toe-to-toe. Amazon passed Walmart in quarterly revenue for the first time ever. $187.8 billion. That's with a B. Online retail sales. Continuing to push Walmart, which is brick and mortar, to its limits. Amazing how that works, huh? I wonder how the Walton family is going to react to that. In other biz bites, we always like to talk about the economy, and we'll have Fred on later to discuss this in more detail. This coming Wednesday, Fed Chair Jerome Powell is going to be speaking before the House Financial Services Committee to give the Fed's semi-annual monetary policy report. And you can bet that it's not going to include anything about the rates dropping. The monthly U.S. Consumer Price Index is also due out next Wednesday on inflation trends. Don't expect that to be any different. It's going to be bad no matter what. A judge in Massachusetts, why am I not surprised, has barred the White House from implementing the deadline for federal workers to accept the buyout. He has paused the offer until at least Monday, when he's going to hear arguments questioning its legality. As of yesterday afternoon, more than 60,000 people, or 3% of the federal workforce, accepted Trump's offer, which was part of his and Doge's plan to slash federal spending. And of course, the unions representing federal employees sued the government, arguing it's unclear if it can fulfill its promise to pay workers through September. Well, that's a piss poor argument, unions, and I'll tell you why. Because our government can print up as much money as it wants, as much of that fiat Federal Reserve note as it wants to support itself. It's not a big deal. Our Congress has been doing it for years. So I don't know what's with the unions, other than the fact these guys think that would all, and I mean, look at the end result here. If you kill the union by getting rid of all of its workers, then the union can't make any money, right? Can't make all that dues and all those ongoing payments that union workers have to pay if you're a union that's involved in the federal government. And that's why it's suing, because it feels like it's being threatened. U.S. conglomerate Honeywell is going to separate its aerospace division from its automation group and spin off its advanced materials business in a move similar to the one that General Electric announced in 2021. And guess who's involved in that? Elliott Investment Management, the same bunch that invested in Southwest Airlines. So much for peanut class, huh? Oh, you got to love it. I got a copy of a receipt. It was made out to the Turlock Irrigation District, dated November 30th, 2022, invoice number TID 23-001. I wish I could show it to you right now. But it is for $81,707.54. This is to the Turlock Irrigation District. And what is it for, you ask? Well, who was it from? Let's tell you that first. It's from Weather Modification International in Fargo, North Dakota. Oh, yeah. And apparently a California resident has discovered this receipt or this invoice dated November 30th, 2022, and wants to know, hey, Weather Modification International, what's this bill for? Well, it's itemized: aircraft seating operations, aircraft fuel costs, flight time, and ejectable flares. Oh, yeah. And ferrying, mobilization, and demobilization of a King Air C-90. Yeah. They burnt 449 gallons of fuel at $2,867.64, but the seating operations was $1,577 a day for 30 days, totaling $47,319.90. I'm telling you this, I'm reading out the receipt because there's a lot of you doubting Thomases out there that do not believe that weather modification is a real thing, that these chemtrails aren't real, but they are. And you have zero idea what they're doing with it. Now, I want to get into, you people out there with TDS. No, that's not a disease. I mean, it could be. And we're talking about Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, is this what this is all about, right? Oh, man. I tell you, it is just getting crazier by the minute. The International Criminal Court, Trump is now sanctioning them because they've got warrants out for Bibi and Yoav Gallant in Israel, in addition to Mohammed Diep from Hamas and others. Al-Masri, yeah, they got warrants out for their arrest because they want to drag them in front of the criminal tribunal, the International Criminal Court in The Hague. And we all think they're a joke. Now, why is the International Criminal Court so important here? Well, just because of the fact that the International Criminal Court is representative of the New World Order global governing body. And see, if you give these people any kind of leverage, it furthers the objective to have a new world order controlled by a central global government, which none of us want. Now, back to Trump derangement syndrome, because Trump basically sanctioned travel and whatnot to the ICC. So that this is what he's doing in retaliation after he sat down and had a meeting with Bibi. This is Benjamin Netanyahu. And you got to wonder, because of everything that's happening with Gaza and Stephen A. Smith, all the podcasters are going ballistic and screaming and yelling about the fact that this whole idea of doing the Trump casino and the Trump Tower and the Trump golf course over in the Gaza Strip it's folly, folks. Nothing is on the drawing board, like I said yesterday. But see, this is part of Trump derangement syndrome, and it's even coming out of conservative talk masters. podcasters. Doesn't matter. As long as you give them a microphone and let them talk, this is what they're talking about. They're talking crap about Trump. They're making it look like he is some sort of Khazarian Jew boy to Bibi Netanyahu. Yeah, did you do that? What did you do? I had to throw some Woody Allen in there. Yeah, that's Woody Allen. That's his famous lines. What did you do? Did you do that? Yeah. Well, I can point a finger at Michigan State Rep Lori Pohutsky, a Democrat from Livonia. What did she do? She went out and underwent surgery earlier this year to become voluntarily sterile out of fear for the future of reproductive health care across the United States with Trump taking office. Yeah. And see, what she did was she got up there in front of these crowds speaking to hundreds of protesters who gathered at the Michigan Capitol as part of the 50501 movement, which aimed to hold 50 protests in 50 states on one day. All these demonstrations at state capitals across the United States, and they're, coming after, warning of protesters about fascism and Nazis and coup. And folks, you should really be happy that we don't have another Joseph Stalin or Benito Mussolini in the White House, because Trump has gone out now and he has established a task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias in the United States of America. You wonder why all these churches are going belly up? A lot of it has to do with the fact that people have lost the faith. It's that simple. I mean, there's even temples for sale, synagogues, for sale. Because I've been researching this heavily. You got to wonder why there's this anti-Christian sentiment out there, and why everybody all of a sudden is supporting Allahu Akbar. I mean, the Democrats, they tried to storm the education building yesterday, Maxine Waters, the mouth of California. Man, did you get the license plate number of that truck? I have to wonder about Maxine Waters. She is one twisted soul. If anybody suffers from Trump derangement syndrome, she does. Hey, why don't you have a sex change, Maxine? Tell us how you really feel. It's really a problem here for people going out and state representatives going out and getting sterilized. I mean, is that good for the gene pool? Maybe every Democrat needs to follow that line of, yeah, not every Democrat has Trump derangement syndrome. Trust me. They've all looked at what these Democrats are doing. And I'll tell you what, if we had Marxism in America and the Democrats started protesting their policies, just like what Joseph Stalin did to 100 million of his citizens in Russia during his reign, they would just disappear. They'd go into concentration camps where they would be mass slaughtered. They sent them to Siberia. They either freeze to death, starve to death, or they get slaughtered en masse. Is that the kind of government you want? Is that the kind of dictator you want? You better stop calling Trump a fascist and a Nazi. See, this is what the left is doing right now, because, and if you ask them, why are you calling him that? They couldn't come up with a reason. There's so many posts on Facebook right now from people that are taking and copying verbatim all of these protests. They have no idea why they posted it on their website, but just because they may agree with the point, they put it on Facebook, and Facebook, of course, lets it go. But the problem is can't these people think for themselves? Why do they have to be influenced by the teeter-totter? This is the problem with America. We're not thinking right. We're sick. A lot of people out there are mentally ill, and they're suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, how many of you Republicans out there and GOP listeners to the show suffered from Biden derangement syndrome? I mean, we all knew that the guy had lost his marbles. I mean, he's walking around in space like, things don't matter. And there's a lot of you that think that that wasn't the real Biden. That was a duplicate. That was a doppelganger. We got doppelgangers in Congress. Look, I understand that the difference between conspiracy theorists and truth is 6 months, but it's going to take a lot of time for the Trump administration to clean house. But to have people like this woman, Lori Pohutsky, state representative from Livonia, Michigan, to get up there and proclaim and violate all sorts of HIPAA laws that she let the surgeons go down there and clean out her uterus so that she couldn't have kids. Does she have kids now? See, that's never brought up. Maybe she didn't want kids. I don't know. But see, to sit there and turn around and point a finger at Trump and accuse him as the reason behind why you got sterilized, you are twisted. Folks, you really need to take a very close look at your state representatives, because these are the people that are making laws and tying you down. I mean, what happened? What Whitmer did? Governor Whitmer? The witch? Yeah. Ha! You're melting. Your business is melting. Give me a reason to lock you down and I will. And if you don't take the jab, I'll shut down your business. What are you doing with your business open? We're going to throw you in jail. Is that what you want? You really want things like that? You want Whitmer and people like that in office? Why is it that so many people just, this is nuts. They sit there and they scream about what's going on in some other country, and it seems like they're less concerned about what's going on in their own backyard. This is a problem because churches are wasting away. Businesses are wasting away. Everybody's hiding in their house, afraid to go out and communicate with other people. This is going to be a real problem if we don't start talking. We got to get out there and start talking. I mean, you need to take the risk and get out there and communicate with people. We need to start having, semblance of the soul and of the mind. We need to get people getting together and talking things out. And it's not so much the fact that you've got an opinion that's different from mine, but at least can we have a conversation and share the why about this? I don't know of a Democrat or Republican that hasn't entertained that thought. Every time I bring it up, even though they're a diehard libtard, and I bring up, look, why do you think the way you do? Well, because so-and-so said it. Well, that's not good enough. Did you actually do the homework? No, but I just don't like Trump. I hate Trump. Well, he who hated his brother is a murderer. Do you believe in God? You see, then they get to make a choice. If they believe in God, then you can't hate somebody else. So now you're conflicted. How does that work? Oh, man, I'm telling you, this is a crazy world we live in right now. And it's all because we listened to the government back in March of 2020 when they said we have a pandemic. It's no worse than the flu. And everybody's got to stay in their house and we got to shut all the businesses and put everybody out except for the corporate. See, now when you get the corporates controlling America and controlling the workforce, and oh yeah, we have a stable economy now. No, we don't. Now, not when eggs are what they are and what gasoline is now. Gasoline still hasn't come down below $2.70 a gallon, folks. It's still $2.70 a gallon in probably a majority of the United States, if not more. Those in Hawaii and California, you're paying about $7-something a gallon right now. And what are you paying, $11 for a dozen eggs? Makes you want to go out and get a flock of chickens, doesn't it? But see, they're all worried if I get a flock, they'll have H5N1 and then I'll get it and die. You see how they've got you panicking? 78 people come down with H5N1 or some sort of variant, and it's not confirmed. It's the CDC mouthpiece, see, because, Kennedy needs to get in the driver's seat and start working this thing. He hasn't been, the Senate is delaying a lot of votes, including Kash Patel. The Senate committee, the Democrat caucus there, won't let Kash out of the hangar so that the full Senate can vote on him. You see, they're doing this to mess things up for Trump. I mean, they tried to enter the Treasury Department the other day. They tried to enter the Education Department. And, of course, Maxine Waters and everybody started blowing a gasket. I mean, the only thing for sure we do know is that a lot of these blue state cities that call themselves sanctuary centers, they are fighting the deportation effort by Tom Homan and ICE. And of course, it's just going to be a matter of time before they're confronted and their mayor or their governor or whoever is interfering with the roundup of these criminals in the United States of America. And these illegal immigrants that get swept up in all of this are going to find themselves in jail on federal charges. Now, what are they going to do? Charge them with obstruction? You saw where that went with the J6ers, right? That obstruction charge didn't work. Now, if you're impeding a law enforcement officer, yeah. And see, people think that Fauci, well, the federal government can't charge Fauci with a crime, but the states can. Hint, hint. Why don't you call your state legislator or the governor and say, hey, or the attorney general, even better, and get the attorney general to file a lawsuit against Fauci for lying to the American people because they knew or should have known that this was nothing more than a flu bug, and Fauci made all this money off remdesivir. And they're still giving it as part of hospital protocols. Boy, oh boy. Yeah, like I said on the show yesterday about Dr. James Thorpe, you know, God love the man. He's out there telling pregnant women and women of childbearing age not to get the shot because you will not be able to have kids. And there's a lot of women out there that are going, he's full of caca. Yeah. I happen to know people that are postmenopausal that got the jab and started bleeding again. So don't think this mRNA stuff. I'm going to reach out to Judy Mikovits and see if I can get her on the show, and we'll talk some serious turkey because this stuff is out there and it's dangerous. And I can't believe it. The publicists are calling me. We have to get Robert Malone on your show. I'm like, no, we don't. He's the one that's taking credit for creating mRNA. Oh, yeah, science may be what it is, but the thing is they've taken mRNA and they've abused it. So, no, I don't want him on my show because I would get into a pissing contest with him, the likes of, you know, God forbid. And then we have another little issue going on. When Bibi met with Trump, he gave him a gold-plated pager as a gift that referenced Israel covertly supplying pagers packed with explosives to all these Hezbollah people. And when the pagers were detonated and blew up, it killed dozens and wounded nearly 3,000 people. So Bibi gives Trump one of these gold-plated pagers, and it's like with a caveat, don't press both buttons at the same time. Yeah, Betar is a pro-Zionist group affiliated with Israeli Irgun terrorists. Trump signed an executive order to deport non-citizen college students who take part in protests considered to be anti-Semitic. Betar USA now claims to be working with U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement. Oh, yeah, they're handing out pagers to critics of Israel, which is being interpreted as a threat. Maybe these things will explode. Betar harassed Norm Finkelstein, the author of The Holocaust Industry, that proposes that the memory of the Holocaust is exploited as an ideological weapon to provide Israel immunity from criticism by placing a pager in his pocket. The right-wing Zionist group Betar USA is putting pagers in people's pockets, targeting critics like UN Chief Guterres, journalist Peter Beinart, political scientist Norm Finkelstein, a move being slammed as a death threat following Israel's pager attack on Lebanon. You see, the pager pandemic, that's what I call it. You know, it's out there. It's out there. It's what they're doing. You know, they're sending a message to these people. Now, so Trump, are you really getting, which Israelites are you getting in bed with, Mr. President? Because you're confusing a lot of people here. Because there's an Orthodox Jew and there's a Khazarian Jew. And there's Jews who are still over in Israel that have been cleansed of this whole thing that still think that Jesus Christ was a prophet and nothing more. Where are we going with this? Is Trump a whipping boy for the Khazarian Jews? Is this what it's turning into? I mean, why is he sticking his nose in over there? Just relax. I think he's trying to get the attention of the Arab states, and yeah, he did that. Now he's trying to get Ireland and Norway and all these other places, Spain, to take all of these Palestinian refugees from the Gaza Strip and get them out of there while we do massive cleanup. Well, this is very similar to what we did in World War II. Remember, we went over there and bombed the living bejesus out of them? And then we turn around and we go in and we spend all this money restoring all of Germany? This is just crazy. All the tax dollars going to rebuild a country we just bombed the hell out of. This makes sense, doesn't it? Oh, my goodness. Oh, what a web we weave. This is going to be very problematic, folks. Long Island poultry markets have just been shut down because they just discovered bird flu cases. Is that really true? Or is this just another one of those freak out type of things to make us all wonder what in Hades is going on. Oh, we can't have a flock because they'll come down with bird flu and die and we'll get contaminated. You see, here we go with the pandemic crap again. Fred Dashevsky joins us after the bottom of the hour break here on the Krieger Files for our Friday edition. Stay with us. Be right back. Dave Krieger here. Are you having issues with your credit? With interest rates as high as they are now, this would be a great time to invest in yourself by getting a copy of the Credit Restoration Primer. So when mortgage home interest rates finally do come down, you'll have already taken the necessary steps to get your credit score where it needs to be so you can move forward in life. Thousands of consumers have benefited from the Credit Restoration Primer, and you can too. Go to cloudedtitles.com today.
With inflation constantly chewing away at the value of paper money, perhaps it's time for Americans to bite back. Ownership of gold and silver coins provides great counterbalance to weaker paper money value. U.S. Coin Capital provides physical gold and silver coins. You can reach us directly at 1-800-878-2646, uscoincapital.com.
Need a document notarized even when one or more of the signers is out of state? What a faster way to close your real estate deals by getting your documents professionally notarized online at professionalnotaryonline.com. For more information and to book an appointment, visit professionalnotaryonline.com or call Aaron at 941-400-8282. A trusted Krieger Files partner. Good in all 50 states. That's 941-400-8282.
It's time to send another message to Washington. It's the Krieger Files.
All right, back on the Friday edition here. You wonder about the economy? How does it affect what you're doing? How does it affect your lifestyle? Have you made plans to go visit Mark J. Kwan's website and take a look at that, pay zero taxes? See, part of the problem, and I've always talked about this, I talked about it on my Doom to Repeat, which, by the way, if you go to my Substack page and you subscribe as a paid subscriber, you get to read the entire book, Doom to Repeat, all 30 chapters and appendices. You get to go do this. And see, one of the things I talk about is getting small. Yep, getting small, big thing. Because, see, if you're small and you are self-sufficient, and you have a way to generate your own juice and your own water, and you don't have to rely on utilities. You know, when you're doing all that, and see, that's a thing that everybody tries to achieve in their lifetime. Maybe they like being dependent on government. This is part of our problem. But you see, when the CBO investigates what's going on in the United States government, and they come up with a budget and economic outlook update, well, the media doesn't care about any of that. All they care about is Trump derangement syndrome, and they don't want to talk about one of the biggest stories of the year. Fiscal inheritance is what they call it. Trump's fiscal inheritance, and it's a grim one. The federal budget deficit in fiscal year 2025 is $1.9 trillion, according to the CBO. That's a Congressional Budget Office. Now, the CBO is used at the whim of Congress. Yeah, beck and call of Congress. And the Budget Office is tasked with researching. I don't even know if half of you know what the CBO does. But seriously, they serve at the pleasure of Congress to do the research for Congress so Congress can stay in the loop about the economy and how we're going to deal with it. Well, why don't you let the states worry about that? Why do you have to stick your nose? I mean, we have the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. Why do you have to stick your nose in our business? Yeah, this is why state legislatures are in such a tizzy right now, because all the Democrats can do is think about nothing but impeaching Trump or Trump derangement syndrome or going out and sterilizing yourself in protest because you think our reproductive rights are going to hell in a handbasket. And we already told you. And see, this is the thing about these people that post this crap online. They copy somebody else's post. These people are total morons, because if you're going to subscribe to this stuff and it just irritates you, it stresses your life out. There is absolutely zero sense in stressing yourself out, behaving this way, and then regurgitating this crap online because it's somebody else's thought process. And because you're so involved in it, you can't get rid of this cognitive dissonance that's stopping you from facing reality. The reality is everybody was sick of Biden. Everybody was sick of word salad. They didn't want it. They didn't want to see some president looking at his watch while they're carrying dead airmen and dead people that were serving in Afghanistan, dead troops in coffins off of the airplane. They're tired of the disrespect to veterans. They're tired of the DEI in the military. I mean, what are we going to do? Send all the drag queens out with full armored gear? Oh, how do you think that the Arabs are going to treat them when they go over there? You know, they kill them over there. They don't like gayness over there. They'll kill them. So, but yet they want to put up makeup and their uniform and go on out there and be drag queens out. No, I could just imagine that would go down well, would it? I can just see them now. They get a gun pointed at them and they're going, oh, shut up. Yeah, they're starting to do their little routine on stage. Yeah, no. Trust me, the Arab states won't like that. They despise it. At least they respect that. See, our Christians over here, it's like half of them have given up. Like I said, you wonder why our churches have gone belly up? Why they're going bust? Why so many of them are for sale and people are buying them and converting them into homes? Because you can get them cheap. This is crazy. People that are trying to, schools, what are the school districts going to do with it? I'm just throwing the ideas out on the table here, folks. I'm not trying to give away, all my thought processes. But a lot of people are taking these old buildings and they're recycling them and spending a little bit of money and turning them into gorgeous living quarters. And a lot of people, of course, are also out buying mini homes and whatnot. Tiny homes. See, Boxable, they've come out with the mini box now, which is a $20,000 little tiny home. And you put that on a little piece of land and, hey, if it's just you, you're good to go. But when you're looking at the United States government trying to lead us down the path, leadership by example, and those of you who are still trusting the government after all of this lockdown and businesses going under, I can tell you right now that a majority of those small businesses that got shut down are pissed off. But putting all your faith in one guy, I don't care if it's Trump, I don't care if it's Musk, you need to put your faith in God. God first, family second, country third. In that order. Got to take you and the family. See, God and family work together because that's in the Bible. That's in the good book for those of you that believe.
Light on. There you go.
One of those things. Sorry about that. He is here. Hey, Fred. Yeah, but
what's happening? Sorry about that.
Terrible.
A little bit of.
He's terrible. Yeah, I was just talking about the CBO, 1.9 trillion federal budget deficit for 2025.
Ouch.
I was trying to explain what the CBO does. It works at the pleasure of Congress to come up with all sorts of, interesting things that people,
Well, most importantly, it's supposed to be nonpartisan.
Supposed to.
Yeah, and they are much better, than when the current administration releases information and data. CBO is much better, much more accurate.
All right. And so with this 1.9 trillion, what does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that the interest payments alone are going to be close to more money than what we're spending, on a lot of things that the government has in its budget. And it's going to become progressively difficult to manage the interest payments without having to raise more capital by selling more bonds or printing more money. And what I'm afraid of is that the more of this that we do, the weaker people are going to see our economy, and they're going to become concerned about our ability to repay our debt, at which point selling bonds becomes progressively more difficult.
No doubt. And now as far as gold goes, it's according to reports out now, it wants to go higher. Why is that?
Well, it's setting record highs almost every week on the back of weakness in foreign currencies and the U.S. dollar, although the dollar's relative strength against the other world's currency was up a little bit in the past couple of weeks. The fundamental problem that we're experiencing worldwide is a rapid inflation of worldwide currencies. The Bank of England has been stockpiling gold at an incredible pace on the back of a very weak economy going on in England. And what is happening is that a lot of times foreign countries will look for other currencies that, maybe look better to them, that they could park their capital in, but everybody's inflating their currency. So by default, central banks worldwide have been accumulating gold at an increasing pace. In fact, they're setting records. So, imagine if we're trying to promote the idea that there's stability in our currency, but nobody buys it. And you can't move to another currency because nobody's looks better. By default, you end up piling up into the gold market in order to have a safe haven and wealth protection and a little diversity. Plus, with these economic slowdowns that are happening like in China and again in Europe, as I mentioned, they're running out of options. So I think they're looking to gold as a source of stability, in the same way that, if you were trying to borrow money from a friend and you write them a Dave Krieger IOU, and, there's some mutual friend that you both have, and one friend says, hey, I owe you money. Can I pay you with Dave's IOU? Well, the second guy, if he believes in you, might accept that. But if you continue to try to play that game, at some point, your friends might say, well, I don't believe in Dave's ability to make that IOU good. So I'm going to become more hesitant to let him borrow more money from me. And this is the problem that the United States faces, is that the larger these deficits and debts become, the greater our need to try to raise capital from a variety of sources. I'm sure you've noticed how aggressive President Trump has been about trying to reduce spending. I mean, he's letting Elon Musk pretty much run amok. I don't know when we voted Elon Musk in, but apparently not only did we get President Trump, but we also have Elon Musk as well.
Yeah, the flight of the billionaires.
Incredible, hey, right?
I got this peace dollar from you, Fred. Man, I had 1928 peace dollar, and I got it as part of a big roll of coins here, folks.
Beautiful.
Hey, I'm telling you, folks, if you're not stocking up on silver, you need to be right now, which is why we have Fred Dashevsky from U.S. Coin Capital on board. That's uscoincapitaltol.com. And that's where you go to ask questions. And he's got a phone number, 1-800-878-2646. What, you didn't write that down? 1-800-878-2646, uscoincapital.com. Now I'm sounding like a commercial for Fred.
But I don't mind.
but we have, the thing is people need to start stocking up. If you haven't made the commitment, you need to do that.
I think there's a fundamental flaw, and this is the real problem. And again, I've been addressing this for the 40 years I've been involved in gold and silver coins, is that the flaw that we have in America now is that we do have an unbacked currency. And that's something people have to accept. Whether they're fans of precious metals or real estate or the stock market or crypto, whatever their thing is, we do face a fundamental problem, and that is that the value of money is subject to change because we don't have sound money. We have fiat money, and that means that when the government runs short, it can simply print more unbacked money to fill these gaps. And with the government running up $36 trillion already in national debt and adding to it, as you mentioned, these large deficits now each year, even interest payments are becoming difficult. So the likelihood that we're going to have to print more money seems, almost 100%. Now, why does that affect people? Because we're flooding a pool that is effectively a supply of goods and services, but we're adding more money into the system faster than we're manufacturing more goods and services. So there's an overflow of capital in paper. And what it does is it's like, I used to make the analogy that if you took your bathtub and a cup of black coffee and poured it into the bottom of the bathtub and then slowly added water, and periodically you would take a cup of the mixture out of the bathtub. Well, it's going to progressively get weaker and weaker in color. So by the time you fill the bathtub, it'll probably look almost clear. And this is the same result as what happens to paper money's value when we print more and more beyond the growth in the economy. I don't believe we're at a point where there's enough potential for economic growth to absorb the amount of money we're printing, because we're just so deep into this hole already. And that leaves people with a fundamental problem that they have to work every week. They have to invest every week. Nobody's handing you tens of thousands of dollars for your expenses. You have to earn and work for that money. And when you do, the problem is if you don't spend it, let's say almost immediately, it slowly begins to lose more of its purchasing power. So you're sort of forced into an odd position where you're working for a dollar, but that dollar is not retaining its value. The reason I've always recommended the gold and silver is it really does act as a counterbalance, because the weaker paper money gets, the more expensive those silver dollars that you have in your hand or any gold coin will become in comparison to that dollar. And I do believe we're going to see this continued go forward at a more rapid pace than what we've experienced up to this point, because the rate the government is blowing through money right now has also accelerated.
So this idea of Trump building casinos and stuff over in Gaza Strip is just like, this is all pure folly. It's not going to happen.
We're taking over Canada. We're taking over Gaza. We're taking over the Gulf of Mexico. I like this. We just arbitrarily say, oh, we own that. That's okay. That used to be yours. Yeah, we're going to take that now. I got to say, if you wanted activity from a new president, we've got it. What was it, 27 executive orders in his first day as president. We've had massive amounts of activity within the economy, and everybody seems to be scrambling because every day President Trump says something that apparently nobody else within his administration knew about. Like this Gaza thing, for example. They went and started asking people in the State Department and the Treasury and Congress, and they were like, what are you talking about? We haven't heard anything about this. We don't know how this is going to work. What do you mean he's taking over Gaza and America is going to own it? Wait a minute. So it's almost like he's throwing a bunch of crap against the wall. Let's see what sticks. But the idea that they're shaking things up, I think is great. How this is all going to play out, I mean, we'll have to see how that translates. But I expect that all these things will end up costing an awful lot of money. Now, Elon Musk is trying to take the other approach, which is if you can't raise the capital, by raising our taxes or selling more treasury bonds, the other side of the equation is you reduce government spending. So he's kind of come in with a machete, and he's just slashing everywhere he can go and say, well, I could cut 50 billion here and 10 billion there and 2 billion here and 100 million there. And looking at programs, I think anybody could have done this before. The problem is you also have to have behind it the political backbone. So I could turn around and say to you, okay, this is what you need to do to solve your problems. Let's say you're running deficits and spending more money than you should. And I might say, well, Dave, you're going to have to cut out the golf course stuff, and you're going to have to drop your stuff that you do here and there and start saving money and spend less on your food and, cut down your entertainment. But you may not be willing to do that, which means you're left without a solution. So not only do we have to come up with ideas, but they have to be palatable. And, it's almost unfortunate, but a lot of these ideas that they're talking about in reduction of government spending means reducing services to people. And this is where it gets sticky. So the Democrats are freaking out because the Republicans are saying, well, we have to start cutting these services. And that means these people that were on the government teat, guess what? You're not going to get money anymore. And there's a lot of pushback. So, if I put you in charge and said, okay, what do you slash? What do you want to start cutting? Is it going to be defense spending? Is it going to be spending on public programs? Whose legs are you going to cut off? And politically, that's really difficult. So it's going to be very interesting to watch this going forward.
Now, Adam Data has come out with a rental affordability report that reveals now that owning a home is more affordable than renting a 3-bedroom property in nearly 60% of U.S. counties that they've analyzed.
Right. Except the banks won't make a loan to people who are qualified to pay the rent, apparently, but they don't qualify under the same conditions to take out a mortgage, which to me is a bit bizarre. I mean, I get what the banks are trying to do, which is be extremely conservative about to whom they loan money. But if a guy is paying $2,000 a month in rent, how come he can't afford a $1,500 mortgage payment? So, we are in a very strange position here where rental income for those that do that has been fantastic. For those that have to rent and pay that rent, it's horrific. And you're right. You're at a point now where people should be able to take out a mortgage and buy a home. At least there, the potential is for the equity of the home to go up in value over the years. And you're not just spending your money frivolously and getting nothing out of it. Because when you rent, you own nothing. So you pay your rent, you pay your rent, you pay your rent. 2 years goes by. What do you have? Zero. You bought a home and you made a mortgage payment. Well, you're knocking down that loan. You're knocking down the intrinsic debt against the value of the equity in the property, and you have an asset that is yours and hopefully over the years becomes more valuable. So it's very strange that we're in this kind of environment where the banks are so hesitant to make loans to people who clearly are paying rent month after month, but the banks won't qualify them to take out a mortgage.
No kidding. And see, I'd be looking at a different bank. If you go in and you fill out a mortgage loan application and they say no, I'd take all your money out of the bank that you have in there and just say, you know what, I'm going to go bank with somebody that will do business with me because you don't want to do business. So speaking of doing business, tell me, what do we got going on for specials right now in the gold and silver market?
On the gold side, I have a group of $10 gold pieces that were struck before the 1930s, and I have both varieties, Indian and Liberty Head, both in mint state 63. So these are uncirculated, mint condition, graded and certified, sealed in the NGC holders, and they generally run around $18.50 or so per coin. And I have a group of these available at $1,750. Anybody who mentions the Dave Krieger show, we will offer that pricing at $1,750. This is as long as supplies last, of course, but it's a great opportunity to buy a mint condition $10 gold coin for under $2,000. And I think it's a great value for people that are either adding from time to time or are first starting. We've had people buy 10 or 20 of these things at a clip, and sometimes people buying literally one or two. But I think it's a great way for people to accumulate. So $10 gold coins, minted prior to 1932, both varieties, the Indian Head and Liberty, I have available. They're actually effectively the same price, and I would offer them to your listeners $1,750. Mint State 63 $10 gold pieces.
Now, for those of you that don't understand mint state, Fred is a grader. He's one of those official guys out there that could sit there and take a look at a coin and say, hey, this thing is, and you can actually grade the value of that coin as to its condition.
I can, but what I do is I also submit these to a third party, because what I'd like to have happen is if you're going to acquire a mint condition coin, I would prefer if that quality is not defined by me, the person selling the coin to you, or by somebody who might potentially be looking to buy it. The best way to do this is have an independent third party make that grading assessment. And I use the toughest standard that exists within the coin industry, and that's called NGC. That's the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation of America, NGC. And their holders are sonically sealed, tamper-proof, grading designation, date, and type of coin stamped right on the holder, so there's no way to miss what it is. It makes it perfectly easy for somebody, even as a novice, to know they're getting exactly what they should be getting without the parties involved in the transaction being those that are also grading it. So it's a third-party grading system beyond my own, and that affords me the opportunity to not only use my own eye, but also make it palatable for the person acquiring the coin to recognize they're not just merely taking my opinion. Not that there's any reason they shouldn't, but it's certainly much better if you have a third-party grading on any coin that you buy.
Right. Now, the other thing that Adam Data reported on was about U.S. commercial foreclosures going up.
They are.
This is pretty scary.
You know a lot about that for sure. And, I would suggest that I wonder whether that problem persists because people had taken out loans they couldn't afford, or whether there was some shenanigans going on. But, I imagine a lot of people got stuck in a mortgage that, they simply can't afford to make the payments, and now they're heading into the foreclosure process. So you would think this would affect the real estate market in a negative way. You would think it would drive prices down. We haven't seen that yet. We're still seeing, I know real estate is local, but at least in this neighborhood and everywhere I talk to people so far, prices for residential continue to go up. Commercial, a little different, but the residential market is still thriving. I definitely encourage home ownership to those that can afford it. I'm a big fan of assets that appreciate in value, and borrowing money to buy an asset like that makes perfect sense to me, as opposed to assets that depreciate. Like, for example, if you buy a car, I don't think anybody should finance a car if they can't afford the car outright, because they're losing money consistently each year as the car depreciates in value. So you're borrowing money, paying interest, and you're paying for something that, again, is worth less and less over the years. If you have to do it that way, I get it. But the smarter way to utilize your capital is to buy assets that appreciate. And if you borrow money to do that, I think that makes perfect sense. But I'm surprised we haven't seen more of a downturn in real estate prices, considering the foreclosure problem.
Well, and I think you are going to start seeing it. The thing is right now, as of December, 726 major businesses got foreclosed on. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, like you said, I think the business went south, that the market stagnated, that people just are tightening their belts. And this is one of the reasons why you need to start investing, because, I mean, they've got to do something to shore up the value of the dollar. And this is an ongoing fight because you've got all these BRICS nations out there that are trying to devalue the dollar and create their own currency to try to destroy the American economy. And the other thing that we've got going on here is Trump basically, and I knew he did this to get a knee jerk out of Canada and Mexico, but now he wants a 25% tariff. And then he turns around after they react, which is what he wanted, as a good negotiator, throwing it onto the table. And now they're saying, well, we'll tell you what, we'll send 10,000 troops to the border and we'll nominate a fentanyl czar and we'll crack down here. Just don't impose those tariffs because we get in this trading war. Well, there's another guy out there that owns 7 Grains Natural Market in Talmadge, Ohio, and his name is Dave Krieger.
Really?
Oh man, it came across my my internet stream, and I'm looking at this going, wait a minute. See, he and his wife, Gina, they own this fairly large grocery where they deal in a lot of food made from scratch, chicken, macaroni, salad, sub sandwiches and stuff like that. And see, he's freaking out over this tariff proposal because if that happens with Mexico, the price of avocados will go through the roof.
Sure.
What else can we expect? You really think he's going to hold him to this?
Well, again, I think you're right about the one thing you said is that he is a negotiator. So he starts with a shot right by your head. He's going to get your attention and say, look, I'm threatening to do X, Y, and Z. And from that point, he has room to, wiggle and say, okay, well, if that's unacceptable, we can drop to this. And anything he does is going to be a move in the right direction, because the trade gaps are obviously quite ridiculous between what we do in terms of accumulating data and accumulating goods and services from foreign countries and what we sell. But, I'm afraid a lot of people are not prepared for the inflationary backwash of what happens with tariffs. And, some people are arguing it's not inflationary. I struggle with that because, I don't see how in the instance where if we're going to import goods and services and start charging tariffs to these countries to sell their goods here, well, that's going to raise the price then, and it's going to make it more comparable. So we're going to either knock out the cheaper option, or we're going to force the prices of those items being sold in America to go up. And that naturally is inflationary. Unfortunately, wages, how much people are earning, do not go up at the same rate inflation does. Inflation is much quicker. So it's outpacing the wage increase. No doubt. This is going to become a perpetual problem for people. And, people don't like inflation. I mean, it became almost a political issue, and it hadn't been for decades. I mean, it's always mentioned, but it got so bad in the past couple of years, it's getting progressively harder to ignore. Right. So I think people will push back a lot. And that's why I think if we expect inflation, well, then let's prepare for it. Let's buy things that do well in inflationary times. And certainly gold and silver, no pun intended, but they shine during those environments. Right.
Well, I appreciate your input, Fred. We got to go. We're out of time for today's show. Wow. In the meantime, God bless you. God bless the United States of America. See you Monday. Forward in life, thousands of consumers have benefited from the credit restoration primer, and you can too. Go to cloudedtitles.com today.
Many Americans are growing increasingly concerned about the rapidly growing U.S. government deficits, recognizing the additional printing of paper money devalues U.S. currency. To compensate, American gold and silver coins will provide wealth protection. U.S. Coin Capital provides physical gold and silver coins delivered directly to our clients. You can reach us at 1-800-8